Good evening and welcome to Empower You. I hope all of you are ready to learn how to dig up bodies. After all, Halloween's just in 2 weeks. I want to thank the board members that are here tonight. Karen Horowitz, Joe Platt, excuse me, he's not here. Bill Roll, who's our treasurer in the back, Jay Gronke, our producer. And I'm glad to announce that our managing board member, Dan Reginald, is back tonight. He'll be up here in just a little bit. I want to thank those of you that have been giving so generously with your donations. For any of you that want to give that haven't, there's several ways you can do that. When you sign up to register for a class, there's a donate button on the registration page. You can go to our website, empoweryouamerica.org. There's a donate button there. For those of you that don't like to give that way, you can send it to our physical address, which you will find on the website. And then of course, here in the studio, we always pass our red buckets around. If you have $1 or $2 you want to give in, we appreciate that. Last Thursday, we had Bob Coutier here. He was doing the active killer class, and we're regretful that we were not able to put that online as we intended. It was a little bit more complex for us to do. Maybe in the future, we'll be able to do that, but Bob was great. He covered 4 hours and 2 hours. So I'm sure he didn't get it all in there, but he got a lot of good stuff in there, and hopefully we can have him back sometime. Want to talk about the classes coming up. Next Tuesday, we have Make Your Backyard Birds Your Backyard Buddies. I'm looking forward to that class because I'm not a lover of birds. I do like hummingbirds. I think my problem goes back to when my 10-year-old son came home one day with a duck egg, he said, from the woods. And he said, "Can I incubate this and raise it?" And I said, "Well, how are you going to incubate it? You don't have an incubator." He says, "Well, Tommy has one." I said, "Oh, okay." Because I knew he was never going to be able to do this. I knew we weren't going to have a duck. Well, Mom was wrong. Not only did we have a duck, but we had a Canadian goose. So yes, he incubated it, it hatched, and it made a terrible mess. As the older it got, it couldn't stay around. I do like the hummingbirds. The other thing I don't like about birds is I have a mulberry tree on the side of my house, and the birds like the mulberries. And after they eat the mulberries, they like to fly to the front of my house, and then they leave purple and white droppings on the walk going into the house as if they needed to find their way back to that tree. What I do envy about birds, though, is that they can fly anytime they want, anywhere they want, wherever they want, and they don't have to pay for it. And most importantly, they don't have to wear a mask. So maybe by the end of next Tuesday's class, I'll find some more reasons why I like birds. Thursday, we're going to have the class on dementia. And I know all of you have heard that during COVID has been hard on people that have had any kind of mental illness. Well, it's been especially hard on those with dementia, and especially hard on the caregivers. So Teresa Youngstrom's going to be here. We had her in a few years ago. She was very helpful to those that needed to hear that have people they're taking care of or know someone that's taking care of someone. So if you know anyone in that situation, please have them come to that class or log in. Next, we're going to do our giveaways. Dan, if you'll come up.
Thank you. How's everybody doing tonight? Good to see you. So before we do the giveaways, I just wanted to do one thing. So I wanted to thank Betty for covering for me the last few weeks I've been gone. Can we give her a round of applause? She did great. So I was in South Carolina, and I always love to go there in September. It's really beautiful there. And the deal I had with Betty when I left was I said, Betty, as long as you keep doing good, I'm not coming back. You're just on your own. And so I would watch every Tuesday and Thursday. Like I watched Barb, who did a great session on civil disobedience. Let's give her a round of applause too. She was great. But every week when I watched Betty, the sessions just kept getting better and better. And it really worried me because I finally called her and said, Betty, I've got an emergency at work. I'm coming back. But I just think she did good. And the biggest thing that Betty did that she's so good at preparation. She prepares over and over and over. So I thought I'd get her a little gift And hello, everybody online. It's good to see you. And it has to do with our last class, which is a beer tasting session at Third Eye Brewing over on Chester Road. And this follows the preparation, Betty. I thought I'd give you some time to prepare for the beer drinking. So I've got you quite an assortment here for you to get ready to taste at our last session. So let's give Betty one more round of applause and thank her. And I thought, since some of the giveaways have been a little serious, I thought we'd do a few fun giveaways. The first one for the people here ends in 699. 699. I hope that's the number. Anybody have it? 699. It's back there. Let's try one more. How about number 712? 712. Let's keep going. We've got one back there. So what we've got, I hope this will be interesting to you. This is the new Vince Flynn book, Enemy at the Gates. So congratulations. Let's give our winner a round of applause. And for our online giveaway, we have kind of an interesting one. We'll announce that towards the end of the class. It's a book somebody told me about. I don't know, have any of you ever heard of this book called The Greatest Beer Run Ever? It's a super interesting story. One night in 1967 at a New York City bar, a group of men reflected on the family and friends that they had sent to Vietnam. Eventually, the bartender proposed an idea. What if one of us would sneak over to Vietnam, track down our buddies, and share messages of support from back home and some laughs and maybe even a little beer? Looks like a really fun book. So we'll announce the winner a little later on. Just had two things I wanted to let you know. On the October 26th class with Vivek Ramaswamy, finally, the CEO of Great Parks of Hamilton County has agreed to come in here and talk about the levy for Hamilton County, which would more than double the price of what we pay for the Hamilton County Parks District. He'll be here the first 15 or 20 minutes that night to talk about it. And then the last thing I wanted to let you know, most of you know I've been involved on the critical race theory situation. Yesterday was a very big day at the Board of Education in Columbus. They had a 12-hour meeting, and during that meeting, they were able to overturn Resolution 20, which has really been the kind of foundation for critical race theory in Ohio. It was replaced by a resolution with the name Resolution to Promote Academic Excellence. Could you imagine? And one of the tenets of the resolution, I've got a copy of this I'm going to pass out to you later on. It says, further resolve that the board condemns any standards, curriculum, or training programs for students, teachers, or staff that seek to divide or ascribe circumstances or qualities such as collective guilt, moral deficiency, or racial bias to a whole race or group of people. Yeah, let's clap for that. That's a good thing. And that passed yesterday, and I just happened to see the Governor DeWine's kind of handiwork on that, and he finally, I think, called in a few markers, and this passed 9-8 at the State Board of Education. So somebody asked me today, well, what does that really mean that resolution's passed? Well, what it does mean is that the schools who have used the Board of Education as an excuse for what they're doing will not be able to use the board, at least they won't be able to use the board as an excuse any longer. We're still going to have to hold individual schools accountable, but I think it's fantastic news. So while I was so involved in this critical race theory discussion, I met Lauren Bowen, who's our first talker, our first speaker, and she had such an interesting story to tell, because everybody I talked to about critical race theory, they told me the same thing. They said, you know, this education thing, the unions are just controlling education in the state of Ohio. Everywhere I looked, there was some kind of union influence. The worst member of the Board of Education that got this resolution passed last July in the middle of COVID was somebody that the NEA put put up to run and gave them money to get elected. So Lauren told me this really interesting story about what she does, and I wanted to introduce her. Lauren is a lifelong Ohio resident and calls Cincinnati home. After earning a master's degree in international politics from Wright State University in 2014, she led an innovative, first of the kind digital government accountability and transparency project called the Ohio Checkbook. Through that leadership experience, Lauren developed a fierce determination to undermine government corruption. She has since joined the Freedom Foundation as the state director to fight union tyranny and oppression. In her spare time, Lauren enjoys collecting early American antiques and trying new restaurants with her husband. Let's meet Lauren Bowen. Welcome, Lauren. We're glad to have you.
Oh,
Thanks.
it's a true honor. Whoops. Decided to wear my stilts tonight. Okay, hi there. It's lovely to meet all of you or see you again. It's true that you already may know me. I have lived in Cincinnati for almost a decade now, which is just terribly hard to believe. I moved down here from the Dayton area to work on the presidential race here in 2012 and the Senate race that was happening. And I had every intention of moving to Washington, D.C. to work doing who knows what. Thankfully, I avoided that though, because I hear DC is kind of a swamp. But really and truly, I fell in love with the city and the people, and I just could never bring myself to leave. And I have to confess that I have made good friends with a lot of you that may be watching online, and maybe even some of you that are here in this room. And I just could not have done anything that I've ever done in my life and in the conservative movement without you being an inspiration to me. I can't tell you what it's meant to be entrenched in the cause for freedom with God-fearing people and upstanding people like all of you. And that brings me to Dan. He's just been an amazing support system. And I know some of his friends, Ed and Gina Bell, from way back when, and I can't tell you what they've done for me and pouring into my life. And recently I've met Betty. She's just been an amazing blessing as well. So this really is so exciting for me to be here at Empower You. So in the years since meeting a lot of you, I have been a part of an effort to reimagine and improve the meaning of government transparency here in Ohio. It was called the Ohio Checkbook. And for the first time in our nation's history, state finances were online, every last single dime. And I have to be honest, this was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life to work on that project. I just knew that it was empowering people to hold government accountable. It was giving taxpayers direct access and clarity about how their hard-earned money is being spent. And it really, to me, was how I think our founding fathers would have envisioned our republic to work. So fast forward to 2020, and that really brings me why I'm here to talk with you all tonight. I came across an opportunity with the Freedom Foundation here in Ohio to stand up for the First Amendment rights of public employees and hold government unions accountable to not only their members who they're supposed to be representing and be their voice, but to the taxpayers who really are funding these government unions and paying them very handsomely. And you know, because of the Ohio Checkbook and because I knew it was possible to expose the Oz behind the curtain when it comes to government spending, I knew I just had to embark on this project to be an advocate for the truth on behalf of public employees so that they would know their rights. So here I am, very humbled and blessed and full of gratitude, working for one of the first times in Ohio's history to curb the political influence of government unions and undermine their power alongside the most amazing, talented people you could imagine, both in my organization, the think tank, battle tank, we call it, that I work for, And honestly, just the people that have joined me here in Ohio to be so supportive and a friend to me. So I think one of my favorite things about what I'm here to talk with you about tonight is that for a change, it's positive. And so many of the times we turn on the news, and when it comes to government and politics, it just sinks our hearts. It just makes us restless. Our stress levels go way up. At least that's how it is for me. I'm sure it's like that for you too. But I am here to share positive news. And I know that you here at Empower You, the folks that are part of this wonderful group that Dan and Betty run, you live purpose-driven lives, and you know the power of activism, and you know the positive impact it can make. And so, you're standing up and fighting for what you believe in because you're patriots, and you do it out of a sense of duty to this country and to your community and to your families, and out of a sense of honoring your faith and what you know to be the truth. And that's why I know what I'm doing here at the Freedom Foundation in Ohio is going to resonate with you and encourage you and leave you feeling uplifted. And I have to confess that really is why I want to do what I do, is because I want people to have hope and I want them to have empowerment. So really and truly in Ohio, we've had a really long-standing need to rein in the asymmetrical power of government unions, power that they have enjoyed for decades and unfortunately still currently enjoy. I'll give you a list here of recent trends and patterns. This is by no means exhaustive. We could be here all night if you wanted to be talking about this, but teachers' unions are promoting the masking of young children. The OEA provides resources on their website to educators and issues materials that promote critical race theory in the classroom. They've publicly made statements about Dan's very work to keep critical race theory out of the classrooms by him, going to the state legislature and lobbying for that. And they've made stark statements about what Dan and all of you are doing as far as your activism up in Columbus. They're blatantly for critical race theory, these teachers' unions. Unions use taxpayer dollars to fund Planned Parenthood. They give large sums of dues-payer dollars to fund social welfare groups and nonprofits that have directly undermined election integrity, as well as promote and orchestrate efforts that revolve around defunding the police. Unions funded ballot drop boxes in the Georgia Senate races. In Ohio, all of the major unions dedicate hundreds of thousands of dollars to elect a Democrat Secretary of State. They are absolutely obsessed with getting a Democrat Secretary of State into office. The OEA and the AFT meddle in school board races to gain political advantage in local districts, to keep schools closed, to keep young children masked, to promote controversial curriculum that involves a whole array of things that I feel inappropriate to talk about tonight in front of all of you adults, so imagine children hearing about it. They directly undermine parental choice in education, not only in terms of the schools that parents may want to choose for their children to go to, but the curriculum that they're exposed to. Teachers' unions are never advocating for parents to give consent for this largely controversial curriculum that's promoted in the classrooms. That's wrong. Parents should always have a choice over what their children hear. In 2020, unions spent $176 million to elect Joe Biden. Just a little over 50,000 was given to President Trump, and that came from a police union. And I wish I could say that Democrats were the only beneficiaries of dues-paying dollars that unions dole out, But no, GOP officials in Columbus who demonstrate they can be bought and paid for, especially when it comes to opposing right to work issues, have no problem accepting the campaign cash. The unions and energy companies alike gladly make these politicians very rich. If you are a conservative and you're pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, for lower taxes, support election integrity, or pro-Trump, or for medical freedom, you name it, these rich, powerful unions have been a counter to your convictions. There really truly is a cycle of corruption that's going on. Bear with me for a second because this is a little layered and complex, but unions fund the political campaigns of their friends and cronies with the dues dollars of their members. These friends and cronies who gained a political position of influence and power because unions generously funded their campaigns with other people's money, believe they owe union bosses. And you're not going to believe this, but the union bosses believe that they are owed. And then at the negotiating table or lobbying for radical legislative priorities, the unions get exactly what they want. So I hope you can understand this pattern and this trend, which you're probably thinking, Lauren, I thought you said there was good news. Well, you know, with this cycle of corruption, there is a reduction in the quality of services that you all receive as a tax-paying citizen. And then it's in exchange for nothing but higher taxes. So reduced quality of services, able to rely on government less, and standing up for what you believe in as the will of the people, and then your taxes go nothing but up. And this is all thanks to the unions paying politicians a lot of money to get elected. And then we have the advancement of policies like these school closures in 2020 that totally went against the will of the people. And you can fill in the blank. Think of anything you want that has frustrated you in the last year. And I'm sure that unions were behind it in somehow, some way. So anyway, now to the good news. In the summer of 2018, the Supreme Court of the United States recognized the God-given rights of public employees. It was decided that because of their constitutional rights, more specifically that relating to their freedom of speech and freedom of association, that they should not be forced to pay dues. That money could be used to fund political campaigns or causes that go against their beliefs. So since the summer of 2018 in the Janus versus Apsney Supreme Court decision, government workers have had the freedom to choose membership and dues contributions. Now, a lot of them don't know anything about this. A lot of people still think they're obligated and that it's a condition of their employment to have to pay these dues. You know, the government isn't going to tell them because the unions give them a lot of money. We've already talked about that. And don't let this surprise you, but the unions aren't going to tell them, of course. But they have to know about their rights and they have to know the truth. And that's where our work at the Freedom Foundation comes in. That's where our battle plan comes in, as we like to call it. So we're here to raise awareness about public employees' ability to opt out of their unions. And we'll do this through any means: a mail, text, phone, IP targeting, distributing information in the lobby of their workplace, attending events. And, you know, we even show up at their door, at their home, and we knock on their door and say, we care enough about you. We care that you know the truth, that you understand your rights, and that you have, because of the United States Constitution, the ability to choose union membership. And honestly, we're fighting for the fiercest way for these workers. They need to know that their money doesn't have to go to fund political causes or political campaigns that go against their own beliefs. They have to know that the terms and the conditionings of the collective bargaining agreements established within their employer, whether it be at the state or local level, or even in the school districts, those collective bargaining agreements still apply to them, meaning that they get all of the benefits integrated into those collective bargaining agreements, whether they're a dues paying member or not. I like to explain it this way, that if your car insurance came to you and said, if you get an offender bender tomorrow, we'll still pay for you, but you don't have to pay us any monthly fee, you wouldn't pay your car insurance, would you? So that's the same thing that applies here. And honestly, they can pocket over the lifetime of their 30-year career. If you have a young teacher that plans on doing this as their life calling for their entire career, which, let's face it, is a lot of educators. They're passionate, they step up to the plate, they want to do this for their life's work. If they discontinue their dues membership, they can save around $25,000 over the lifetime of their career. Imagine putting that in an investment portfolio with even modest returns. So, you know, the thing that I'm most thankful for in doing all of this is I'm not alone. I really, truly am grateful for the public employees, the educators that have taken bold action to cancel union membership and dues payments. Their bravery and moral clarity is to be commended. And we're here to empower you. And so you're here gathering information about this. And this may be the first time that you're hearing about this and you're a part of a public employee union. If that's true, I encourage you to consider opting out and follow their lead. I have business cards that I'm going to leave on the back table. You call me anytime and I'm going to help you. Friends don't let friends be in government unions. We're a nonprofit. We operate this mission based entirely on the kindness and generosity of patriotic people who care about workers' rights and freedoms. We really, truly could not do this without them. And you know, there are so many people praying for this mission and that are a huge source of friendship and encouragement. It means the world. You know, there's just a part everyone can play. Even my Cavapoo puppy, my Valentine's Day gift, my husband came home one day and he's like, "What's all over the floor?" And I said, "Oh, it's hate mail I got from the unions." My puppy shredded it. I was like, what a useful purpose for a puppy. But how do we know that what we're doing is working on this effort to help public employees understand their options and that they have a decision to make about opting out of their unions? Well, public employees in Ohio are leaving their unions. Thus far in Ohio, we've had around 3,000 people leave their government union. You know, that's roughly in 1 year, a $2.1 million revenue loss to union bosses. In 1 year, think about that in exponential terms. In Oregon, in one of the first states in which this method and plan was undertaken, their largest union, the SEIU, had such an impactful revenue loss because of the work of the Freedom Foundation and workers taking the step to opt out of the SEIU, that for the first time in 2020, they couldn't donate money for political use outside of the state. That's huge. We plan to replicate that here in Ohio. You know, unions feel very threatened. That's how I know this is working. They take the time to respond with disgust and threats. You know, Winston Churchill says it best: "You have enemies, good. That means you set up for something sometime in your life." I really, truly am full of immense joy to be in this battle for freedom with all of you. And even though this work is very hard, I have a huge sense of peace and fulfillment doing it because it's the right thing to do and it's consistent with the truth, and people aren't being left in the dark anymore. You know, people have been betrayed by the politicians that unions fund to help get them elected, and by the unions that promise fair treatment at work. Read the headlines, you'll know that's a fleeting concept as of late. but righteous, noble, patriotic people are doing something about it. For the love of freedom and liberty and our American heritage, we won't stop. From this moment onwards, anti-American, greedy, corrupt union bosses will have to answer to their members. Public servants will know that they have the power to stop being mistreated and misrepresented by their unions. They can cancel their membership. And you know what? In turn, the Goliath of left-leaning politics, radical politics in this country, the very rich government union power brokers who are completely subsidized by the middle class, will what else be? Canceled. Thank you to all of you wonderful patriots for your time and needed prayers. God bless all of you.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We got time for one quick question for Lauren, if anybody has a question that they might be interested in asking. Anybody have anything? Yes, right back here. Hold on just a second, please.
Does that only apply to public unions?
For now, it does, until we realize our dream of right to work in this state for even private sector. It does apply only to government unions, but it is a major first step in honoring the rights and freedoms of people who go to work and are forced to be in unions.
Let's give Lauren another round of applause. Thank you so much for
No,
coming,
thank
Lauren.
you.
Thanks.
It means the world. It really does mean the world, Dan.
And your cards are right here. We'll put
Yeah,
these on the
I'll
back.
put them- yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
You bet. When Lauren first told me what she was doing, it kind of blew me away because I didn't know anything about it. So make sure you can go. Make sure that if you know anybody that might apply to get one of Lauren's cards to them. We're glad to have Joyce Lovins Browning with us tonight. She's native to Ohio, growing up in Harrison and Okeana, and she's been performing living history for 18 years. She retired after 20 years as a naturalist coordinator from Great Parks of Hamilton County, and now enjoys working as a part-time coordinator for Ohio Travel Treasures, sending groups on wonderful bus tour adventures. Joyce, we're glad to have you. Welcome to Empower You. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I tell you what, the only reason I can think that you might be asking me here tonight is that you all want to become resurrectionists. Is that right? Right? You want to learn me trade, I suppose. Well, you're in luck because you're going to learn from the best, and that be me. You see, my name is Mary Cunningham, and I am wife of William. You may not know William by his name. He's been called many names, and a lot of them by me. But William, to his friends, is known as Old Cunny. And it's not just a play upon his name of Cunningham, but also he's a very cunning man. He knows how to read, and he knows his letters, and he knows all about money. He's very good with money, as a matter of fact. But William also has other names. You know, I think the Cincinnati Enquirer put it probably the best. They call him the Ghoul of Cincinnati. Or they've also called him Old Man Dead. Many a mother has scared their child by calling him the boogeyman and saying if they didn't be good, that the boogeyman was going to get them. That's my William. But he wasn't always that way. You know, he came to this part of the country, to Cincinnati, when he was a young man. He was about 25 years old. He came from Virginia. And he was a very tall man. He was very broad-shouldered, strong, built for hard labor. And that's what he did. He was a very enterprising young man as well. He was an entrepreneur, so to speak. He bought him a livery wagon. He worked down on the docks, and he actually worked at the Spring Grove Cemetery digging graves. So I guess you could say he was a grave digger before he became a grave undigger. But William, working as he did, he started working for the doctors at the Ohio Medical College. He became their janitor. He cleaned up after that. And to tell you the truth, to work in one of those medical colleges, you have to have a strong constitution, a strong stomach, because no matter how much cleaning you do, you can never get rid of the stench. And they saw what a good worker he was. And after the war between the states, there were so many young men that wanted to become doctors that the enrollment was overflowing. We had more than 5 medical colleges here in Cincinnati. And it takes 2 long years now to become a doctor. You know that. That's a long time. And these young men are paying quite an enormous sum for a semester, $25. That's some good money. So it used to be a long time ago that these doctors would take, especially their first year students, on field trips to procure their own school supplies, so to speak. But the demand became so overwhelming for these doctors that they couldn't keep up with it. So William, being the enterprising man that he was, stepped in. And he could do it all by himself in his younger days. You know, they said that he had muscles as strong as Hercules and he could do the work of 3 or 4 men. And that was true. And he did that for all the doctors. They respected him. They counted on William to supply them with what they needed. And as time went on, the demand increased. And that's where I came in. You see, William and I became more than just partners as husband and wife. We became partners in business too. And it's very rare these days that a woman can go into business for herself. And it beats scrubbing floors or working in a tavern or any other despicable thing that some women have to do. But William and I was a partnership. And that partnership consisted of, he would read the papers, or sometimes the doctors, if they had a particular patient that had died mysteriously and they wanted to study it closer, they would let William know where this patient was going to be buried. But you see, there was a trick to all that. Nobody wanted to end up on the dissection table, not even the convicts that sometimes did. So I became a professional mourner. If I knew where the funeral was going to be, I could go there and scout out everything for him, make sure that the situation was going to be safe for him to go in later that night. We had a daughter, our daughter Katie. She was a talented young lady as well. That girl could cry on cue. So I always took her with me because you'd always have somebody that would give her a copper or two just to soothe her sore feelings. But Katie and I would go and we would make sure that there wasn't a mort safe. You've heard of mort safes, correct? Mort safes were devices that were put over the caskets and secured with locks to keep people from getting into them. And then, of course, you had your torpedo coffins. Those are something new and enterprising. And with the torpedo coffin, what they did is that after all the last goodbyes and tears were shed and the lid of the coffin was going to be closed for the last time, they had a device upon the loved one's chest that they connected to the top, the casket. And being connected to that, once it was reopened, it would explode. Thus, the torpedo coffin. It would not only kill whoever was trying to get in it, but it would make quite a mess of everything else as well. But the other things would be wolf stones. You had wolf stones in the ancient times that actually kept wolves out of the graves, and those were the 4-legged kind. And nowadays it's considered the 2-legged kind. These wolf stones would be very slabs, big, heavy slabs of rock. And then if you couldn't afford anything of the sort, you sometimes could just wire an old gun into the deceased's hand. And if you did that, it could go off if you opened the casket. So there's all these different tricks that they would have that William had to be careful for. Now, the best place of all to go is Potter's Field. Potter's Field is like picking an oyster out of its shell. They don't bury them as deep there, and it's usually those poor souls that don't have any loved ones to claim them. So therefore, if I can't go down and pretend to be a loved one and claim the body before it's buried, then William can go back. Now, Mr. Schaefer is the caretaker of Potter's Field, and he and William do not get along, let me tell you. Mr. Schaefer, he is a German immigrant, and he takes his $1.25 from the city for burying those poor souls. And then if they are a good subject, he buries the box, but not the body. And then he takes the body back around to one of the medical colleges and gets a little bit less for it because, see, he already got his $1. That makes William angry. He doesn't mind that Mr. Schaefer sells the bodies. He just doesn't want to be undercut in price. So his reasoning is that one of these days he'll see Mr. Schaefer on the slab himself. So we'll have to see about that. But with what I do when I go and scout this, then William would have to go back down in the dead of night. And if you want to do this trade, I can tell you that you're going to need a few things. And one of the biggest things that you're going to need is a nice, strong wooden shovel. Does anybody have an idea why I would prefer wood over metal? The sound. Yes, it deadens the sound against the dirt when you're doing that. So you need to have a nice, strong wooden shovel. And then when you do that, this comes in handy. No, it's not what you're thinking. I'm not going to be grabbing it out. But you know how they sometimes nail the coffins shut? You're going to need something to pry it open. And save yourself some time and energy and only uncover the top half of the grave. Don't waste your time uncovering the entire coffin because you don't need it. What you need to do is you uncover the top half and you crack open the top of the casket. And then what you need to have is a nice strong rope. You'll need to have a good length of rope. And what you'll be doing is you'll be putting it up underneath their arms so you can pull them out gently that way. Don't put it around their neck. Trust me. It's not a pretty sight if you pull too hard. So once you get them out, you have to strip them down. You're going to strip them down like the day they were born. It's a misdemeanor to get caught with a dead body, but it's a felony to get caught with grave goods. So if you see that pocket watch or you see a necklace that you fancy, leave it in the grave as well as their clothes. That way, just take the money that you've earned by selling it to the medical college and buy your own. It's good advice. So with that, it never hurts to have some little extra protection. I've known quite a few people who have run across angry relatives or a night watchman or something of that effect. And if you can't talk your way out of the situation, like William normally tried to do, then it's good to have some extra protection. But like I said, you strip them down, you're going to be putting them in a gunny sack. Now, don't mind this one, it has a few of the stains on it, but I like to recycle. So we do that. But two other fine little tools that would be good to have is a good pair of pliers. Anybody know why I would have a pair of pliers? Yes, the dentist will pay you quite a bit of money for some good teeth. So you can make some extra on the side. And some shears. Yeah, find somebody with a nice long braid. Yeah, cut that off. They don't need that on the dissection table, but the wig maker will buy it from you. So you have all these different things. And I know when you're first getting started, you can get the jitters and it's not something that you really would relish doing. But when you can make $15 to $25 a body, and William can take more than 100 in a season, because you see, this is only part-time work. You don't want to be doing this in the summertime. There's a good reason for that one too. So it's a part-time job that does pretty well. But what you need to do, no matter what time of the year it is, and I find it quite comforting, is to have a brace and drink now and then, especially in the cold of winter. I like my whiskey, and you'll find it quite helpful in getting your courage up, I'm sure. And William has talked himself out of some pretty sticky situations over an ice bottle, because one time he was caught with a body, or he was getting ready to take it out of the grave. And the citizens decided that no, they weren't going to let him do that. So his companions that he had had at the time had run off. And William just decided he wasn't going to put up a fight. But as they were going down, he ran across, there was a tavern not too far, and he talked him into going in for a nice drink before they took him to jail. But before the bottle was over, he had talked to him and told him that he would gladly go back to Cincinnati, because he was a little bit out in the country, that he would go back to Cincinnati and not disturb the grave again. So they took him at his word. He was very convincing. He could talk his way out of anything or into anything sometimes. But what he did is, as soon as they let him go, he decided to go back and get it, and he did. So William was very enterprising when it came to that. But like I told you, the doctors depended upon him, and they knew he could do it. And one of his most favorite things to do is, like I said, you would strip him down. William always carried an extra coat and a hat and a throw with him. He had a nice wagon. And what he would do is he sometimes, especially if it was a male subject, he would set them up on the wagon with him. And he would put the coat and the hat on him, and he would drive right down the main street in Cincinnati. And if anybody gave him a strange look or something, he would just slap him upside the head and say, "How dare you get this drunk with you and a wife and little ones to feed? This is the last time I take you home." And he would always steady him with his arm. And then he would drive him right around to the back door of the medical college and deliver him like he promised. Now, the Ohio Medical College is and that is where he normally likes to go, because he works there during the day as well. But their dissection room is on the second floor. So instead of carrying him up the stairs, you can drive around the back. And believe me, they don't take them to the front door. They don't like that. Please take them around to the back. And they have a pulley system that can take them straight up off your wagon. So you don't even have to have any extra energy for that. So there's different things in different ways. And like I said, William is William. Let me see. With this being a part-time job, he gets kind of bored in the summertime. And so do I. You know, what do you do with yourself when it's hot? We live on the second floor above the pharmacy. And one summer in particular, not too long ago, I went down to the pub. I like to have my whiskey, like I said. Maybe I had a wee bit too much. I don't know. But I was coming back. I was in a fairly good mood. But the neighbors didn't like my singing. And I suppose I didn't tell you that I have a nickname too. I'm also known as a quarrelsome woman, but they call me Alligator Jaws around town. And I suppose that the reason that they call me that is once I grab onto an argument or a fight, I don't give up too easily and I don't let go of it until I'm pretty much the winner. So this particular day I was walking around and I was pretty close to the apartment at that point. William was upstairs reading the paper. He had on one of his summer suits, which was white, of course. And the neighbors started picking on me. So I started picking back. I don't take anything lying down. And we started a fight. Well, William, of course, heard the commotion, and so did the police. But William thought he had to come down and rescue me. Now, I never asked for that. And so when the police showed up, I think the official report of the police was William tripped and fell into the night. And of course, he bled all over his white jacket and he blamed me. So after spending some time in jail, which was a commonplace sometimes, the judge, when we were brought before them, decided that perhaps it was time that William and I said our goodbyes, that we seemed to be getting in trouble every single summer, and maybe we should just get a divorce. I wasn't too much on getting a divorce. Maybe it's because I really wasn't sure if we were legally married, but that's beside the point. So all I asked the judge for was a piece of paper saying that I was not beholden to William anymore. You know, he was getting a bit on the crotchety side anyway. I figured he didn't love me like he used to. We weren't getting along, that's for sure. So we went our separate ways, and Katie, of course, she adored her father, and she definitely did not want to live with me. Not only was I quarrelsome with that, she said I was quarrelsome with her, but you know, children. So she stayed with her father. And I got a small bit of settlement, I guess, and I guess I celebrated a little bit too much because I ended up spending the next 2 months in the workhouse for drunk and disorderly, imagine that. But it wasn't long after that that William had a succession of partners that he went through. He had different gentlemen that helped him out. None of them really had his back all the time. He even took buckshot in his hip, which made him walk with a limp and a cane. You know, a lot of people thought William was older than he was, but he was only in his 50s. But he was getting slow. And I guess getting slow, he was getting sloppy. Maybe it's because he missed me. No, probably not. But anyway, he got caught one time up off a Reading Road with 2 bodies in the back of his wagon. He was arrested, of course, taken to jail. The bodies then were going to be taken to the local mortuary where they could possibly be identified. And then they were going to be sent downtown to the coroner's office so that they could be held with evidence because they had him this time. Well, somewhere in between the coroner's office and the mortuary, they kind of disappeared. And if you don't have evidence, you don't have a trial. So William walked on that one. He walked on that one, and that was told at the mortuary that 2 young men in white coats showed up saying that they were from the coroner's office, but the coroner's office didn't send anyone. The doctors had his back. They always posted his bail. They always kept him out of trouble. And like I said, they respected him because he supplied them for what they needed, because you really don't want a student or a doctor of any sort that doesn't pass that anatomy test to be going in and operating on a loved one or yourself and not knowing what they're going after. So we're doing a service for everyone. What we do is important, but not everybody thinks that. William, like I said, he's not been getting on good. And he's in the hospital. And from what I heard, he passed away. Now, as a grieving widow, I tried to go down and clean the body. Why not? I had legal right to him this time, but they would not let me have him. He had a body contract on himself. And did I see one penny of that? He sold himself, pre-sold himself to the doctors for top dollar, $50 to be exact. And like I said, I didn't see a penny of that. So I pitched a fit, and they didn't call me Alligator Jaws for nothing. So I think the doctors just gave me an extra $5 to shut me up. But what I understand that they're going to be doing with him, because this is William's final wish, is once they give him awake, all the doctors from all around, he's shipped bodies as far away as Kansas and Michigan, puts them in a pickle barrel sometimes. But all the doctors that had respected him for all these years, they are going to give him a toast of good fine whiskey, top of the line. And then they're going to do their work. And after they're finished with him, they're going to strip down his bones and bleach them. They're going to wire them together. And he's going to be put in a case at the Ohio Medical College with his favorite shovel and pipe. And that is where he wants his final resting place to be. Now, I know my William, he knew that who he was and what he did, that he would never stay in the ground long. And as tall and big of a man that he was, he would end up on somebody's slab. And like I said, after he got that buckshot in his hip, he never quite healed the same way. He had trouble healing his wounds. He couldn't eat any kind of sweet stuff, and drinking was something that would put him under lately. So I have to tip my hat to William. We had a lot of good years together. And if you decide that you want to become a resurrectionist, I'll give you one more last bit of advice. Go somewhere else, because Cincinnati is my territory. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Mary is kind of a interesting character, to say the least. And what they did, they truly believed they were doing a service for the doctors, and they did. With the high demand that they needed for cadavers in those days, and autopsies were illegal, that was their only way of securing them. And they really, really tried to go after the ones that were unclaimed, or Potter's Field or something to that sort. I mean, I don't think they were as malicious as the public thought they were, but once a body was on the dissection table, since they were taken without any identification whatsoever, unless the body snatcher actually told them who they were, they never made it back to their original grave. So a lot of you can pretty well think that Ohio graveyards, pioneer graveyards, actually are more than half empty, no doubt. Does anybody have any questions for Mary or me?
Hold on, please. Wait for the microphone.
Bodies from Spring Grove?
I don't think he took too many bodies from Spring Grove. Spring Grove always had night watchmen and was very well protected, and the gates. And of course, they were very high profile graves, a lot of them. So he preferred Potter's Field. That's where he went. Longview Sane Asylum was another one that he went to. There was another hospital that had a consumption graveyard, and that was another one. But William was in and out of the Cincinnati Enquirer papers a lot. And he actually gave a personal interview to someone about Mr. Schaefer. He didn't like what Mr. Schaefer was doing, and he wanted the public to know. So, anybody else?
Right here.
What brought you these people to your attention?
Well, working with the Park District, I worked at Winton Woods for 20 years. I was in the Naturalist Department, which is the education department. And we used to do a Women in History segment all the time. And of course, I've done Annie Oakley and Julia Grant and some others. But they wanted to do a Halloween type theme program. And they were talking, we were planning it out. And they wanted to do ghosts and the different things like that. And I said, why do something that you're not sure of when you've got actual history in front of you? And I had heard the story of William Henry Harrison's son that was taken in 1878 out of Congress Green. It was John Scott Harrison, who was the congressman. He was also the father of Benjamin Harrison. He was the only man that had a father for a president and a son for president, but so I had read that story and heard that story, and that got me to researching body snatching, and I came across William. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
What was the range of his resurrections? You know, what
Where
kind of
did he go?
territory?
Yeah, he would go pretty far. I would imagine that he's probably come as far as Butler County. Lebanon was another area that he'd gone to up that direction. He would go wherever the doctors needed him. And it wasn't just the 5 medical colleges here. Miami Medical College was another one. Ohio Medical College became UC. And I've been down there. They've got archives, and they have the big ledger from where William signed himself in when he got sick. He died November the 2nd of 1871. And it shows where William signed his name going in the hospital, but there was no release date. So that showed that William died. And actually 2 weeks prior to his death, they printed an article in the Cincinnati Enquirer that stated death of a resurrectionist. And boy, did that make him mad. They said he lived in squalor and he did this and that, but he thought well of himself. He didn't live in squalor. You know, they had a nice apartment. Well, I don't know how nice it was, but they had an apartment and that kind of thing. So what was your range? Oh, I'm not exactly sure how far they went, but I would imagine they went wherever they were needed or thought they could get what they needed. Anybody else?
I wanted to ask you because I have Cunningham roots from Virginia.
I'm
Sorry.
too close to you. Okay.
Do you know what part of Virginia he might have been?
He came here when he was 25. They're not sure if he actually was born in Ireland or if because they called him the Big Irishman a lot of times.
Mhm.
I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
I would imagine since it was like 1845, it could have been any of the major cities down there. I still want to do more research.
Thank you.
We have another question back here.
Did you ever get sick from digging these people up? I mean, you talked about consumption and things like that.
I would imagine so. I do know that there was some medical students that really did William wrong one time. And to get back at them, he actually dug up somebody with smallpox to make the students sick. And because he had had smallpox, because they talked about his face being pocked and had survived. So he was immune, I suppose. But I would imagine, can you imagine before embalming what a corpse would look like or even smell like? You know, so.
Other questions? Right here.
Totally curious. You sound like you learned a lot from newspaper clippings and things, but did you also find diary entries and things for all the details that you were describing?
Not exactly. I found some different books that was written. There was also an article that was written in the 1880s about the Ohio Medical College, and they allowed a reporter to go up and survey the rooms and the different things. And he talked in gross detail about stuff. And he actually saw William's skeleton. It was no longer in the case at that time because it had been a decade or more. It was actually strapped to the bookcase, is what he described. So a lot of the stuff I've gotten is from local reports, police reports and different things in this area. Like there was a log cabin up on the corner of Kemper and Winton. And there had been a resurrectionist that lived there. He had retired from his occupation, but he lived there with his wife and his granddaughter. And one night the cabin burnt down and they couldn't find the bodies. They just assumed the fire was so hot that the bodies were, you know, done. But apparently somebody must have had a grudge because 3 bodies fitting their description ended up at the Ohio Medical College. So I've read a lot of reports. I've got a lot of information from the library, and I've actually gone down to UC and talked to the curator down there. So, and they don't have any clue where William's body is. When the old medical college was torn down and UC was created, he didn't get transferred somehow. So my thought or my theory is that he was in someone's private collection somewhere. So, anyone else?
Any right here?
So you said they don't return the cadavers back to the graves. What would they do with the rest of the cadavers?
What would they do with the rest of the cadavers? What a lot of times they did is, of course, when they were finished with what they were doing, they would strip down the flesh off of them until they were bones. Then they would kind of match up the bones to make a whole skeleton, whether it was the same person, man, woman, child, whatever fit to make it look right. And then they would sell those to doctors' offices. Have you ever saw where they had the skeletons in the office? Most of the times those were real. I actually had a lady in the audience at one of my other programs tell me that her father had been a retired doctor and he had an actual human skeleton in his office.
Let's give our guest a big round of applause. Thank you very
Thank you,
much,
guys.
Joyce. You were
I
fantastic.
appreciate it.
What an interesting presentation. Thank you for
Thank you.
coming and joining us. I have a winner to announce from our winner online of the greatest beer run ever is Edwin C at yahoo.com. So
Did I do okay?
congratulations, Edwin. And just one last thing I wanted to let you know about that. I don't know if we've announced that next Thursday night at the dementia session, our first speaker will be the Lieutenant Governor John Husted. He'll be appearing virtually here, so you'll see him on the screen. And he's got a really interesting subject he's going to talk about. It's something we've wanted to talk about at Empower You for many semesters. he's got an initiative to try to get to the high schools to talk to kids about the fact that they don't absolutely have to go to college to be super successful. And he's going to talk about that next Thursday night. So if you've got grandkids, if you've got in your network list people that have kids that are thinking about what they're going to do next year or the year after, you should have them tune in next Thursday night. I think it will be very interesting. One more round of applause for our guests. Thank you very much. We will see you hopefully Tuesday night for our session on birds, and then dementia and the lieutenant governor after that. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.